Backtracking is a system, usually a website or an app, that you use and other team members of you use to keep track of what's the progress of your app. A source control is a system that allows you to keep track of your code changes. Normally, when you develop code, you edit files, you modify, you delete some lines, and then you compile and everything works. But sometimes you would want to go back and see what kind of changes you've made and to maybe undo some of those changes. That's where the source control comes into play. Source control remembers all your previous work on those files, on your project. So you can always go back to older versions. You can also work simultaneously with other developers on the same code base. It's just a different way for you to interact with your files. And when we change our code and we cause a bug, we want to go back and to be able to compare what was before and what is now, and maybe try to understand where the bug emanates from. You should integrate your bug tracking system with your source control because it allows you then to associate your changes, your code changes, with actual bugs. Most of us work, when we develop, we work on particular problems in our code base. For instance, when a user clicks on that button, nothing happens. And then we modify our files because of that issue that we have in our code base. So when you integrate the two systems, you get the reason, which is the bug, and the reaction, what your code changes were. You combine the two. So you can see, because of this bug, I modified that file. In order to integrate the bug tracking system with your source control, you need one of them to start crawling the other. Usually, you would take your bug tracking, which is like an outside application to your organization, and you would tell it to start crawling your source control. So, for instance, and I work with Jira mostly, Atlassian Jira. So you would set up Jira to start crawling your, for instance, your subversion source control. And then Jira, your bug tracking, would start monitoring changes in your code. Now, once you commit code changes, the bug tracking track those and understand that you made some changes, but it needs to know how these changes relate to your bugs. So you need to modify how you commit your code, and in this case, you need to put your bug ID into your commits. So whenever you modify some files, you want to commit it, instead of just saying, I modified this and that, you say, but my bug ID, let's say ID-3, I modified this and that. In Jira's case, you would see another tab called source that would tell you bug number 3 modified also these and these files. And for each of these files, you would even see the commit comment that you put. So I added this, I removed this. So then it gives you a whole picture of what this bug caused. In Jira's case, you have Jira installed on a server somewhere. You would need to install another software from the same company called Fisheye. And Fisheye is the one integrating between the Jira part and your source control, whether it's CVS, whether it's Git, whether it's SVN. In my case, it's SVN. So you set Fisheye on a different server even. You tell it how to get to Jira and get all the bug information. And then you tell it where's your source control, and you give it a user and password to access your source control. So now the server keeps crawling your source control, and when it gets something, it associates the bugs from Jira with your code changes. Because in Atlassian's case, both Jira and Fisheye are from the same company, then they integrate it right into your bug tracking UI. So when you go into your regular UI, go HTTP whatever to your Jira server, and you see the bugs, you get the new tab source, and then you see the changes. Because again, it bundles into it and display it. But you can also, on the other hand, go and browse the Fisheye server. So you can go HTTP to your Fisheye server, and you can see the actual code changes, and you can see what is the current version and what previous version of the code had. And it's actually a great tool to have. It's quite useful even if you're just one programmer, because it helps you see what kind of changes you made before, because many times we fix something and we break something else. So that's really helpful to go back to see what kind of changes you made and why. But it's really important if you have many other programmers with you. The biggest benefit I noticed when we integrated our source control with our bug tracking system is to be able to review code in real time. I put myself as a watcher on that bug, meaning I get email notification about changes in it. Now, another programmer is modifying some files, and when he's done, he's committing his code changes and put a comment in the bug. Then I automatically get an email saying a comment has been posted. I go and I see the actual code changes that that person, the programmer, did with the files related to this bug. So I can in real time review the bug, say what I have to say, and like comment back to the programmer. Now, instead of waiting for rejects from QA saying this is not yet fixed or you created a new problem here, we instead review the code and we find out many of those problems ahead of compiling even. So now our cycles tend to be much more solid than they used to be before. You can go and read it in my blog at myok12.wordpress.com to read more, to comment and ask questions, and to get updates by registering to my newsletter. Thank you.